This is my second video update, and I am going to be walking to a coffee shop to grab a cold coffee, a Freddo Espresso for the evening, and get some more videos out there. And so I thought I would knock out a second video update. Even though today I was feeling off. I don't know what it was. You ever have those days where you wake up and you're just kind of like, nothing special has really happened. You just kind of feel like you're just not on your A game, not even on your B game. Well, I think that sums up this day for me. It is a holiday here in Cyprus as well. This is our final holiday for Easter, so no one is working and things are pretty quiet. But anyway, let's get to our second video update. And I just have a question to ask everybody. Have you booked your tickets to Kiev? Because if you haven't booked your tickets to visit Kiev, well, I don't know what you're doing. You better get on it, because everyone who is everyone, is going to Kiev, whether it's Boris Johnson or Ursula von der Leyen or the prime ministers of Spain and Denmark and Poland and Michel of the EU and Borrell of the EU. And now we have Anthony Blinken and Lloyd Austin, the U.S. Secretary of State and the defense minister, made a trip on Sunday to Kiev. I reported on this, but it wasn't completely confirmed. But they did in fact show up to the capital of Ukraine, where they met with Elensky, Ukraine President Elensky, and there were no reporters at the meeting or even afterwards during a press conference because of security issues. So they allowed press statements to be made after the meeting, and when Blinken and Austin were, I believe, when they were either in Lviv or or back in Poland. So they weren't allowing any press during the meeting in Kiev. Though we do have some photos, and I'll put up some photos from the meeting with Elensky, and I've got some quotes as well as to what they said. So this is actually the first high-level meeting between American officials and Elensky in Kiev. And there was also an announcement made by the Secretary of State, by the State Department, where they said that they will be slowly getting the U.S. Embassy back to Kiev. And they're going to start with building the presence up in Lviv. They're going to appoint a new ambassador. I believe she was the ambassador in Slovakia, and now she's going to be the new ambassador to Ukraine. And they're going to be stationed in Lviv, and then they're going to work their way back to Kiev. So, I mean, for all intensive purposes, it seems like Kiev is... And all the travel from west to Kiev seems pretty open, except for the fact that the Russians are now going to blow apart the bridges and the railway links because of all the heavy weapons that the collective West is trying to ship into the East Donbass. But outside of that, it seems like you can get to Kiev no problem. Just don't take the train anymore. At least that's what it's looking like. But we'll see. We'll see how it shapes up. I mean, what a bizarre war this is. I mean, a really bizarre war. And a lot of people in the comments are saying the same thing. This is one strange war where you have Elensky just taking in leader after leader, dignitary after dignitary in his presidential palace in Kiev, and the capital is pretty much wide open, and people are traveling there and talking about escalating the war and getting more weapons to Ukraine so they could fight the Russians and destroy the Russians. And all of this is going on while there's all of this conflict and this Russian annihilation of the Ukraine military in the east of the country. I mean, I think it's clear as day that you're going to see two Ukraines taking shape. You're going to see the Ukraine in the east extending down towards the south with a land bridge all the way to Transnistria, and then you're going to have the rump state of Ukraine completely closed off from any water, from any sea, any ports, and 100% dependent on the European Union and the United States. And it's going to be a Ukraine full of weapons, full of released convicts and criminals, and full of a lot of Bandera folks, Bandera-loving people. And it is going to be a noose around the EU's neck going forward. But it really looks like the Russians couldn't give a flying flip about about Kiev. I mean, they really just don't care, it seems. They're going to take out the weapons that are coming in, and they're going to start taking out bridges and railway links and depots, ammo depots in Lviv and stuff like that. That they're going to take care of. But outside of that, it seems like anyone can gain access into Kiev. So Zelensky also got some more money, by the way. The American diplomats, Austin and Blinken, said they're going to give Zelensky some more weapons and some more money. So not a bad day for Elensky. Not a bad day at all. Ka-ching. But here's what Blinken said. This is what Blinken said. Quote, "We had the opportunity to demonstrate directly our strong ongoing support for the Ukrainian government and for the Ukrainian people." This is what Blinken told reporters in Poland. Okay, so he had to go to Poland to give the press conference. Isn't it strange that the media was allowed to accompany all of the EU diplomats without any concern for their safety, but for Blinken and for Austin, there were no media allowed, and they had to wait till they got back to Poland? Something weird is going on, something very weird. I wonder if they traveled to Poland, all three of them, to Kiev together, Elensky, Austin, and Blinken. I wonder if they were in Poland and they all traveled to Kiev together to have this press conference. Or maybe there was no media to document everything and no press conference because maybe they just never even bothered going to Kiev. Maybe they just did it all in Poland. Who knows? And so they said, there's no reason to get any of the media suspicious, or maybe have any kind of media leaks where they say, you know what, guys, we were doing everything in Poland. We never really went to Kiev. So maybe they said, let's just close off any media presence. Let's just do everything in Poland, say that we're in Kiev, not allow the media to follow us, or say we're not allowing the media to follow us to Kiev for security reasons. And that way we avoid any types of leaks. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Anyway, Blinken also said that the strategy that we've put in place, massive support for Ukraine, massive pressure against Russia, solidarity with more than 30 countries engaged in these efforts, is having real results. Real results is what Blinken says. 30 countries. He basically means the European Union, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. That's what he means. That's it. The rest of the world is not on board with any of the stuff that the U.S. is doing. Austin, for his part, Austin said that the U.S. has the mindset to help Ukraine win the fight against Russia. They gave Elensky $322 million in new military aid. They also gave him $165 million worth of non-standard ammunition. So they came with gifts. They came with gifts. So that was the meeting between Blinken, Austin, and Elensky that supposedly took place in Kiev, and supposedly there was no press allowed and no media allowed, and supposedly there was a press conference that took place in Poland afterwards. Who knows? Who the hell knows what's going on? What a bizarre war this is. Really bizarre war. So what's the next story that I want to talk about here? We covered that. Okay, let's talk about, since we're on the subject of Western, collective West diplomats, heads of states, and the travels that they are embarking on, let's talk about Ursula von der Leyen and her trip to India. She's going to be speaking at a conference in Delhi. I think it's called the Raisana Conference or something like that. and she's going to be speaking at this conference, and she's also going to be meeting with the Indian leader Modi, and she is going to be trying to sweet talk Modi into ditching Russia, ditching a possible rapprochement with China, ditching all of the fair world order, as Lavrov calls it, and moving back on side with the globalist world order. And she is going to convince Modi by promising India a lot of weapons made in the European Union, EU weapons, and she's promising some trade deals in the EU. And that is how she is going to convince India to completely scrap their relationship with Russia, and start sanctioning Russia. And Ursula von der Leyen is going to get the job done for her globalist puppet masters. Anyone that has seen Ursula von der Leyen in action, I think, understands that she's probably the worst, the most incompetent diplomat on the planet. I remember her meeting with Erdogan in Turkey like about a year and a half ago, and Erdogan put her to sit like on the sofa. He didn't even have like a chair for her to sit next to him. He was like, look, we ran out of chairs, so why don't you sit over there on the sofa? So Erdogan completely just, he was trolling her. He was making fun of her. But I'm sure that Modi will give her a platform to speak and to explain exactly how working with the EU is better than working with Russia, and possibly a lucrative rapprochement with China, and how a bankrupt and collapsing European Union is exactly what India needs. I don't think the Indian government is going to bite. I'm actually pretty confident they won't. But von der Leyen is trying. They're all trying to bring India on side. Every single world leader, from Biden to von der Leyen to Boris Johnson to Macron, I mean, they are just flipping out, trying to sway India over to the hate Russia, to the cancel Russia side of the column. It is complete panic. I mean, complete panic. But the Indians are smart, and I think they're just sitting back, and they're enjoying this. They're just sitting back in Delhi and in India, and they're saying, "Yeah, come on by, and show me what you got." And so why not? Why not? When people are coming to see you, sit back, listen to what they have to say, and enjoy the fact that you are kingmaker. It's a good geopolitical strategy. Russia, by the way, is urging many of their partners in Eurasia, like in the Shanghai Cooperation and in the Eurasian Economic Union, kind of, all the Eurasian states that work with Russia, the former the CIS countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and all the countries in Shanghai, like Iran, etc., or countries that are trying to enter the Shanghai. I think Iran is not quite in yet. I think they're an observer. But Russia is telling all of these countries, look, it's time to start trading outside of the dollar. And they're urging those, what they call their partners in Eurasia and in the Shanghai Cooperative, to start trading outside of dollars, start purchasing everything from us and from each other with other currencies, even euros. So Russia is kind of pushing along the inevitable demise of the USD as reserve currency. And what's the last story? You know what? My first story, by the way, I think we can call it a clown world story. I think it qualifies as a clown world story. The fact that Blinken and Austin are going to Kiev, and everyone is traveling to Kiev. I think it's a clown world story because Blinken is a king clown. He's up there with Boris Johnson. So we're going to categorize that as a clown world story. And I'm going to do the last story, which will be on the Solomon Islands and Australia. Things are heating up in the South Pacific. So Beijing, China inked a deal with the Solomon Islands, a security pact, about a week ago. And I think they signed it like 2 days ago. And no one really knows what this security pact says. But there are some leaks which state that this security pact is about providing the Solomon Islands with internal security, domestic security, because there were some issues in the Solomon Islands over the past couple of weeks where there were protests, and they were trying to storm the palace of the office of the prime minister. And anyway, the Solomon Islands, they decided, you know what? Let's sign a deal with China. China will provide us with domestic security, and we're going to open up our ports to China as well. Now, this is what some of the leaks are saying. Some of the leaks are saying that the Solomon Islands will also make their ports available to the Chinese. And the United States flipped out. They flipped out because they're saying that the fact that the Chinese are moving into the Solomon Islands is a security concern. And as I'm describing what's going on in the Solomon Islands, I want everyone to kind of reflect on the last 8 years, hell, the last 15 years, and how Russia has been saying that NATO expansion and NATO buildup in Ukraine is a red line and is a security concern. And remember, Ukraine is bordering Russia. The Solomon Islands are not bordering the United States, not even close. But the United States flipped out. They actually sent a representative to the Solomon Islands, and that representative, he made some statements. He said, let me pull it up. Let me see if I have his quote as to what this, I believe his name was Campbell, if my memory serves me right. I believe his name was Keith Campbell. And what did he say? 1 second. He said that the United States would respond if China builds a permanent military base in the Solomon Islands, warning that such a move would create a significant concern, would create, quote, significant concerns. And the White House also said that the United States respects the rights of nations to make sovereign decisions in the best interests of their people. However, if steps are taken by China to establish a de facto permanent military presence, power projection capabilities, or a military installation, the United States would then have significant concerns and respond accordingly. So the U.S. has some red lines with regards to the Solomon Islands. Now, the Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands, I believe his name is Sovigarde, I believe is his name. I think I got that right. But he said, look, we have no plans to allow China to build a military base. You don't have to believe him. Maybe he's bluffing. Maybe he's saying the truth. But he said that we have no plans to allow China to build a permanent military base. And this agreement, this security pact with China, is purely for domestic security. That's what the Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands said. Now, Australia's going to have elections coming up soon. And a lot of politicians are blasting Morrison for what they initially thought was a soft approach with regards to China, with China in general, and specifically with what's going on in the Solomon Islands. So Morrison, under a lot of pressure and facing elections, said that this is a red line, China moving into the Solomon Islands. And he really did say that. He said this is a red line. Quote, we're working together with our partners in New Zealand and, of course, the United States. I share the same red line that the United States has when it comes to these issues. We won't be having Chinese military naval bases in our region on our doorstep. Those red lines on our doorstep. So Russia can't be afforded red lines literally on their doorstep. And they've been warning the collective West about these red lines on their doorstep for the past, 15, 20 years. But the minute China inks a security deal with the Solomon Islands, then these are red lines for Australia. And this is a red line. I can see how this is a red line for Australia, no doubt about it. But for the United States as well. But I can see the concern for Australia and New Zealand. Absolutely. This is something that they're going to have to deal with. And, you know, the Chinese came out with a statement and they said this is all fake news. Once again, we have no plans to build any type of military presence or a permanent military base. But who knows? The Chinese may be bluffing. Maybe they're saying the truth. Maybe they're saying the truth, but in a year or two, things may change and the Chinese say, you know what? Let's expand this security pact to include a military base. That's also very possible. But this is definitely a concern for Australia and for New Zealand, no doubt about it. But if they have red lines, then the Russians surely have red lines vis-a-vis Ukraine. And so this is, you know, this is the hypocrisy, and this is the this is what makes geopolitics so interesting, isn't it? But you know, the Morrison government is going to have a very hard time now, I believe, articulating Australia's red lines while at the same time ignoring and disavowing Russia's red lines. In my opinion, I believe that Russia has and had red lines. And I believe in this instance, Australia and New Zealand absolutely have some red lines with their spheres of influence, if you want to call them that, their neighborhood. So this is a concern. And they're going to have to work with their partners and with China to figure out a solution here before this escalates. You know, Russia also had red lines and also had concerns. So what a fascinating story. But this is definitely something that has to get diffused before things escalate. And like I said, China could very well be telling the truth and saying they have no ambition or reason to build a permanent military presence. But, you know, things change in a year or 2 or 3, maybe even 6 months. Things could change and China may decide, along with the Solomon Islands, to build a base. So who knows? But Australia's going to have to deal with this. And they're going to have to deal with this with China, I believe, directly, and with the Solomon Islands. And the United States, well, you know, the United States is an ally of Australia, but I find it very, very rich for the U.S. to talk about their red lines in the Solomon Islands. This I find incredible. Anyway, everybody, I'm going to leave the video there. I am at my destination, theduran.locals.com. It's starting to get dark now as well, so the sunglasses are going to come off soon, and I'm going to start editing. Take care.